Hi everyone, this is Christina Jedlink here, the Community Resource Coordinator at Roselle. Today we're going to start a little... You got it?
I'm not seeing it. I see your fireworks.
Looks like I'm at Roselle.
Are you on your own?
I don't think so. Hold on. If you guys
Oh,
are
there
there,
you
bear
go.
with
You're
me.
on live now.
Okay, now we're
I
on
see you on live.
Technical difficulties,
Woo.
sorry. If you guys have been here watching for the last 20 seconds, we apologize for that. So, hi.
This is typically what happens behind the scenes.
Typically. I'm Christina Jedlink. I'm the Community Resource Coordinator here at Roselle PD. Today we're going to kick off a segment that we want to call CRC and Me. So it's going to be something we want to do monthly. We want to talk about different law enforcement and community topics. I need to slow down when I talk. So if you guys have anything that you want to talk about or discuss, feel free to either message me on Facebook, and then at the end of this, I'll do a follow-up post with all of my information. So today, we are actually going to start with our very own Chief Steve Herron, and we're going to be talking about a question that we actually get quite frequently, which is, when do I call 911 and for what? So bear with me while I turn around the camera. If I can turn on the camera. If not, I'm just going to turn you guys so you guys can see.
Sorry about that.
There we go. You guys are live.
We are. Look at that.
Awesome.
I'll wait for her to get this adjusted. We're good. All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Steve Herron. I'm the Chief of Police here in Roselle. Thank you for coming. This is something new that Christina came up with that she wants to kick off on a monthly basis. And we want to answer kind of common questions that people have had. I'll give you a little warning. If I'm looking that way, it's because this is on a larger monitor over there, so we can see any questions. So if you have questions that are coming in, please send them in to us. We'll do our best to answer them. But today we want to talk about 911. When do you call 911? It's a really common question that we get. And I think people are afraid to call 911 because sometimes they not have what they refer to as an emergency. So we're very fortunate today that we have Amanda Schroeder with us, and Amanda is the training coordinator for DUCOM. So DUCOM is one of the two central dispatch facilities we have in DuPage County, and it's one of the largest centers in the state of Illinois. And Amanda is actually the training coordinator, so she trains the dispatchers for how to use the systems. Maybe tell us a little bit about what you do at DUCOM.
So with this position, it's any new hires that are coming in that are getting started of becoming a 911 dispatcher, and any type of continuing education that we need for our current employees.
So you're going to be the expert in when people are supposed to call 911,
Yes.
right? So let's jump right into it. So
Okay.
people, they really say, what number should I call to call the police department? Because
Right.
I think traditionally, a lot of people like that 10-digit number,
Yes.
that like 260 number or whatever. We really kind of push them into the 911 world. So what number do they call? And is there a difference between when they should call an administrative number or an emergency?
So-
or 911, meaning a 911 number is
Yes.
what I mean.
So there's a lot of different aspects in that. So within our DUCOM towns, we have 22 police agencies and 22 fire agencies. We are the largest consolidated dispatch center in Illinois. So we cover a large area, most of DuPage County. For our purposes, we do prefer if everybody calls 911 anytime that a police officer, any type of fire or EMS is needed. The reason being is that everything comes through dispatch anyway. So even if someone were to call a non-emergency line for a police department or for a fire department, those calls are going to get transferred to us. So it takes out some of that delay time of going straight to 911, getting straight to a dispatcher, and us being able to handle that.
So if I get an administrative line, somebody calls our records department during the day and they want to have an officer, our records people just transfer it up to you on 911, right?
Yes, the only way to get anybody sent to your location is to talk to dispatch. So one way or another, you have to come through us.
So when they call, the efficiency, so part of it is the efficiency not only of using the 3-digit number of 911,
Right.
but the efficiency on it as well is also when you get it, you're getting data and information from them, right? On your dispatch screens?
Absolutely. We can get a phone number, we can get an approximate location, all things that we will still verify. But we can get so much more than if it's coming from an administrative line from a police department or fire department.
So really the best way, if you're looking for a police officer, firefighter, medic, really just call 911.
Yes.
That's 100%. Whether it's a
Yes.
lost wallet, need an officer to come out, or somebody's breaking into your house.
Yes.
Still do it.
Everything from a barking dog to an armed robbery or your vehicle was stolen, anything that would need a response would come through us.
So then that's going to take me to my next question, because a lot of people say, well, I don't want to bother the dispatcher because they know they're really busy. So how many people do you staff on a shift? 10, 12?
On a typical shift, we have 15.
15
Yes.
dispatchers on a typical shift?
Yes.
Wow, so that's a lot, right?
Yes.
And so when they call, they always say, I don't want to call because I don't want to bother them. So how do you handle calls? I mean, we're on 1 North, so we're on a channel 1 North with Hanover Park.
Yes.
So when somebody calls from Roselle, does it go to only our dispatcher?
It does not.
Oh.
So the way that it works is anybody in the room can take a 911 call or a non-emergency call from any town for any circumstance. It gets rotated around the room. So if I was dispatching for 1 North with Hanover Park and Roselle, I could actually get a call for Clarendon Hills Fire, which is not what I'm working that day. So you get a channel assigned to you every day, so that's what you work to actually dispatch for the calls. But any call from anywhere could come into you, and we all handle those.
And that's really the most efficient way to do it,
Yes.
because you're spreading that volume through all the telecommunicators that are
Right.
there, rather than if you're on a busy channel that night, other people are actually helping you, rather
Yes.
than putting them on hold.
Right.
You're
Or
right.
if there's a large accident and we're getting 10 calls, it's not the responsibility of only one person to answer those 10 calls. They can get spread throughout the telecommunicators that we have on duty that day.
Okay, so let's talk about, so that's like a landline. So the old landline, or they call them POTS, like old telephone lines,
Yes.
right? So that's on that. Let's talk about cellular. How does cellular calls handle on 911? Do you know?
I do.
Huh.
So it's a little bit techy.
That's why you're the training coordinator, right?
So-
you got the right person here, right?
Right.
That's really the
So
good part.
we have 2 ways that cell phones can come in. So we have what we call a phase 1. And what that means is that when you called from that cell phone, it hit on a tower. So it's the closest tower. And by that tower, then it gets routed to what should be the answering point for that tower. Now we have what's called phase 2, which is going to be the majority of our cell phone calls. And that's where we can get a fairly accurate location where that phone is coming from. So the way that works, without getting too nerdy about it, is that
I'll be okay with that.
it will triangulate based on 3 towers. So from that, it can get more of comparable to like a GPS location. It's not 100% accurate 100% of the time, but it gives us a lot closer than just a tower that they're hitting from.
So this is not a simple center. This is a very complex technical center that you guys have at DUCOM.
Yes.
You have IT people, you have
Thankfully,
engineers,
yes.
you have all these people that specialize just in that, right?
Yes.
So why is it so long when we get a phone, somebody calls 911 on a cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I get a call and say, gosh, I'm on the phone forever before they pick up the phone. And forever is a relative term when you're in an
It is.
emergency,
It
right?
is.
But sometimes there'll be 2, 3, 4 rings. But you don't see it all the time, those first couple of rings. right?
Typically, no. So you will hear 2 to 3 rings prior to that phone ringing into the 911 center. So that's that process of through that phone carrier, going to that cell tower, going to the correct answering place, and then that phone ringing for us and us picking it up. So we do answer calls very quickly, but it does feel like 30 seconds in an emergency feels like 30 minutes.
Takes a point.
So we are answering quickly. It's just that you hear a couple rings before we even hear a ring.
So cellular is not a perfect science. That's close to it, but it's not a perfect science.
Correct.
So we are on a border with Itasca. Let's
Yes.
say Itasca borders us on the east side.
Mm-hmm.
So say DUCOM, so somebody picks up the phone and it thinks it calls DUCOM for the 911 call, but it's
Right.
actually happening in Itasca, and it's an emergency. Do you guys handle the call? How does that work? So they're with Addison Dispatch,
Yes.
ACDC.
Mhm.
So how do you guys relate to Addison, and how's that call transferred?
So we actually work with them. We're on the same system. So if we get something that is within their jurisdictions, if it is a high priority, super emergent call, threat to life, threat to property, an absolute necessity for a medical call, so we can actually process the call and they will still see it. And same goes for them to us. If it's something that is super high priority, we can put it in for each other, at least get somebody going, and then we can get that call transferred over to them. So depending on the type of call and the circumstances is when we'll transfer that call. If it is something that isn't, you know, what you would consider an emergency, if it's calling because you're locked out of your vehicle, that'll be something that we can just transfer over to them, and we have, you know, a quick button to do that, and then they handle it from there.
So again, it goes back to the efficiency of 911. I don't need to know what the 10-digit line is for Itasca or
Nope.
for Bloomingdale or for anybody else. I just call 911 and
Yes.
you guys do all the work for me.
Yes, the first thing that we're going to ask is location, so the address, the business, the intersection, wherever it is that you are. And then from there, we know, okay, is this going to be ours? Is this going to be somebody else's? And once we know if it's not going to be ours, we can get that call transferred.
So let's talk about volume. So there's a point when the calls come in, there's too many for you to answer. So let's say that we just recently had a tornado in the south end of the
Yes.
county, right? A little bit of a big incident that took place.
Yes.
The tornado siren's going off, right? Sometimes
Yes.
that'll do it. But we have a large event that happens, and you guys get overwhelmed. What happens then? If people are calling 911, I don't want to call because I'm going to bother them or they're too busy. We want them to do that. And
Yes.
then what happens with that call when there's too much for you guys, which is a lot, right? There's a
It
lot
does.
of calls,
So
but
we can
once
take a
that
lot.
happens- yeah.
There is a process within the phone systems that basically it backlogs it. So it will, once somebody is available to take that call, even if the person hung up, we still get a call from that.
Okay.
So we continue to call back until we've reached everybody that attempted to call. But we do have plenty of lines coming through that if we have something that's a little bit less emergent that we can put on hold to answer another 911 line, we can do that as well. And with the tornado, that absolutely did happen. We one of the things maybe not to call 911 for is what is a tornado siren. And we did get a lot of that.
Yes.
So, you know, basic questions of that, or what's the phone number for ComEd. That's not the proper use of 911, but if they needed assistance, whether it was immediate assistance or not, yes, absolutely, they should have been calling. And we had, I want to say they said it was like 1,600 phone calls in 2 hours,
Yeah.
which is a lot.
It's a lot of calls
It's a
for
lot.
you guys, for 15 people to
Right.
handle. So it'll also, if there's too many calls, it'll also go to other centers, right?
Yes, if
so
we're
we have
completely
agreements,
logged.
right? If we have agreements with Northwest Central, with some of the other dispatch centers, so if that number becomes so voluminous, the calls will automatically transfer.
Yes, they will. If we're completely, we can't get anything, and we're just totally bogged down, those calls will start going to Addison Consolidated Dispatch Center, and then we've got further backups from there. We have plans in place if our phones go completely down of what we can do from there. So everything has a plan if anything goes wrong.
And you have a very redundant system over there, right?
Yes.
So the system is ultimately redundant. So even if one system goes down, another system will come up in its place.
For a lot of things, yes.
Yeah, most all the emergency stuff is handled that way. You also talked about it is that when they're on the call, even if they disconnect, you're still going to call them back.
Yes.
So really, is it important if they call 911, even if it's by mistake? What should
Don't
they
hang
do?
up.
Don't hang up. Okay, tell us why.
So kind of like what I was saying with tornadoes, that even when people hung up, that still does ring to us. So it's easier for you to say, you know what, I dialed by accident, I dialed from my pocket. A lot of people turning off their alarm in the morning, hit their side button on their iPhone too many times and it calls. So we're the first person they talk to in the morning. And
That's a wake-up call.
it
isn't
is. It is. But with that, so then if you've hung up at that point, we have to then call you back. If you don't answer, then we have a program that we can send a text to you as well. So we're trying to follow up and just make sure that assistance isn't needed. Where if you stay on the line and just let us know, hey, it was a mistake, then we don't have to do all the follow-up steps to make sure that we're not missing something that could be an emergency.
Is there a point that you would have to send an officer out to check on somebody?
Yes.
And what's the protocol for that? It escalates to a point you may have to do that.
Yes. So if anything is heard on the call that sounds suspicious, we can't make voice contact with somebody, we would send an officer out to the best location that we can get from the phone. With it being a landline, if there is an address registered, we can do that. With Smart 911, which I promise I will get back to, if we have an address from that, we can send to there. So basically, if we have a decent location, we'll at least send you guys to check and just make sure that we're not missing something.
Okay. So the other point that I want to get, my last question is, even on my overnight, so at 5 o'clock, my front lobby closes. The police department stays open 24 hours a day, and all of them do. But at a certain point, our phone lines are transferred up to you.
Yes.
So when we transfer those calls, we transfer them internally, and it goes over a microwave. So we have a microwave link into DUCOM, which is really, I think most of the centers now have that. But we have a microwave link. So when you call here, the call actually comes into a call box, and it identifies that it needs to be transferred. Then it mechanically transfers to DUCOM, and then it transfers over microwave. It comes into your system. It goes into your software, your phones, and then it rings on a desk on one of your operator's facilities. And I'm sure that takes a little bit of time. That's a delay as well.
I have no idea what the seconds would be on that, but yes, there is a little bit because
There's gotta
it's doing
be.
all the proper connections and everything.
Even if it's a lot of ones and zeros, it's still going to take time to process it.
Yes.
So again, it still goes back, if you need police at night,
Yes.
call 911.
Absolutely.
And if they aren't going to, you aren't going to get mad if they call up. I mean, if they
If
keep
it's-
calling you and bugging you, they might get mad.
That's a little
But
different.
if they call up and just say, "I don't know what to do. What should I do?" You'll help.
Absolutely, and if it is something that does need to wait for a records department or for a police department to open, we'll let you know that as well. So things like getting a copy of a report, that's not something we have access to. So if you call at 3 in the morning about it, we'll probably tell you, you know what, here's the hours for Roselle Police records. Give them a call back when they're open. So we do that as well.
Okay. So you had some other things that you wanted to cover too, including some of the systems that DuPage County ETSB has. So ETSB, the Emergency Telephone Systems Board, actually funds a lot of the 911 centers. So the municipalities fund the employees, but the 911 systems, the radio systems, a lot of the interoperability is actually funded by the phone service, right? By your cellular phones. The cost of your cellular phones helps pay for that.
Yeah, there's some money from everywhere.
But it filters back. So we pay for it for the phone service, but it all pays back for this type of an operation.
Yes.
So, and it's managed by the county. The county has a facility on it. Linda Zerlin is the ETSB director,
Yes.
and she manages that. She does a great job with it. But I know that there's some stuff that they have that you want to cover as far as Smart 911.
Yes. So with Smart 911, it's the way that I've always kind of advertised it. It's kind of like turning your cell phone into a landline. Not entirely, but it's a free program. So you go on smart911.com. You can register your cell phone there. Once you do that, you can enter as much or as little information as you want. So everything from your name, your vehicle, your kids, your pets, where your utilities are located. If you have young kids, you can put pictures of the kids in the event that they ever went missing. I hope they never do. But then that picture's right there when you call. There's so much information that you can put on there. And then once you fill that out, anytime that you have to call 911, that screen pops up for us. All of that information you can see. Medical information you can put in as well. Sometimes when somebody is diabetic, they can sound like they're intoxicated. But maybe by having that information, you know, oh, you know what, this might be something with a diabetic issue. Maybe we should send it like this so we have the proper response. So there's so many things with that can help you, and it helps us. If for some reason you couldn't speak, we could have your address. If something happened to your vehicle and you don't remember your license plate, but you happen to register it on your Smart 911, so much could be used just from that, from a free website that gives us a ton of information.
It's free.
It's absolutely free.
No cost.
No cost.
All you have to do is go into it. And what's it called?
Smart 911.
And that's available on, I believe it's available on our website. It's available on certainly, it's on DuCoun's website as well. And it's on the DuPage County website. Oh, she's got some information.
Smart
right there on that.
911.
You can- Yeah,
We like this. It helps us.
it helps. Well, it helps the callers.
It does.
Really, what it does. So you're saying if somebody just picks up the phone and hits 911 with Smart 911, they don't have to say anything.
I mean, we
It-
prefer that they do, but yes,
but
if
it
something
would
is happening,
bring
with
everything
police,
up,
yes.
right? You said a diabetic or something's
Right.
happening, you would know where they're at.
Exactly.
It wouldn't tell you where the phone is, but it'll tell you what the
It does
address information.
both.
It does.
It does. So we will still get, like we explained at the beginning with the phase 1 and the phase 2, so likely we're getting a phase 2. So we're still getting the approximate location from there. And then with registering with Smart 911, if it's one of your frequent addresses and it's hitting in that same area, we've got a pretty good idea that's where you're at. So you can, that was the other thing, you can also register frequent addresses. You can put your work or, you know, if you go to your in-laws all the time, you can put their address on there. So then if you call and you're hitting from one of those frequent addresses, we know, oh, this is the actual address they're at. as much as phase 2 is fantastic, you know, you could be at this house and maybe it's showing that you're next door, maybe you're behind that house. With having Smart 911 and having the exact address, we know exactly where you are.
So one of the misconceptions that I had, we talked about this a little earlier, but it's phase 1, phase 2. Right? There's like location services that you have on your phone.
Yes, and
right?
that has
So
nothing to do with it.
nothing to do
I
with
double
this
checked.
stuff, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but it has nothing to do with it. So
Yes.
it really comes off of phase 1 is an
It's-
older phone, phase 2 is a new phone. How does
It's
that
just
work?
kind of where with your cell phone carrier and the waves that are going from your phone to the towers.
Yeah.
So if you're in, you know, a super secure building, it may not have as good of a hit to the tower as it would if you were standing outside. So it's really just about that communication with your phone and the tower.
So the other side of this too is this is only available for you as a 911 center.
For the Smart 911,
For the phase 1, phase 2, right? As a 911 operator, regular people don't see that.
no,
No,
they
I
wouldn't
mean, that's
know.
for you guys.
Right.
That's 911 stuff. So you're calling 911, you need help, that's where that stuff is. It's not something that's available to me. I can get it through you
Right.
if I have to because of that call.
Right,
And you guys
right.
get it for us, but I can't get that as normal. I would have to have court orders, all that other stuff to
Right.
do it. So that's for life safety. That's
Yes.
your stuff is life safety. So I
For
think-
even if we can just get an approximate location to start and kind of go from there. And if something comes in as a phase 1 where we're just getting that tower, we can also like update it. And then through that update, we can get it into a phase 2 and get a closer location. That also tells us if they're traveling too, because it'll continue to move down the map in the way that they're going.
And how many screens do you have up in front of you? Last time I checked, it was like 8 or 9,
8.
right? 8 screens you guys watch at one point.
Yeah, 8.
8 screens. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So is there other things that you want to let people know about 911? Then we started out with a simple question and we're going down a deep rabbit hole.
We are. I had to get techie.
I know. John Lozar will be very happy with you. John is
So-
the tech over at Duca.
Yes, much smarter than me with all of those things.
And Matt and all the other guys over there.
Yes. Tech is not my strong suit, but I try.
You do good.
I try.
You're doing good.
So a couple things with it. So yes, we have so many different ways to get your location as best as we can with it. We're still going to ask. Technology will never be 100% perfect 100% of the time. So even if we have a landline, we're still going to ask you to tell us the address. Even if we have the phase 2 or the Rave, the Smart 911, it's through Rave.
She's going Ducom Tech on you.
We're still going to ask. We still have to verify it because if we can get nothing else, the address is the most important part. Knowing where you are to get somebody there to figure out what you need is going to be the first step. So if we can get nothing else, we need that location. I will say myself, I didn't quite pay attention to where I was driving all of the time until I started this career, and now I definitely pay attention to what street I'm on, which direction I'm going, especially on highways, mile markers. You start paying attention to those types of things and really be aware of your surroundings. So that location is dire. We need that information for sure. And the other thing too, after we ask you for the address, we do ask a lot of questions. I promise there's method to the madness. We are asking those questions because we're updating the responders on the radio. So we get that call, we put it through to dispatch. Typically, we're still on the phone with you with that. Somebody else in the room or yourself, depending on what you're working, is putting that call over the radio to get a response to you. We continue to ask you questions so that we can update the responders. So it's not that we're delaying in any way, shape, or form. It's already being handled. We're updating as you guys go to make sure that we have the best information for the responders, so everybody's safe when there's somebody coming out to you. So there are a ton of questions. I know it's a ton,
Yeah.
but there is reason. There really is. So we hope that everybody who sees this knows that it's for a reason.
The
We'll be
officers.
polite.
The officers ask a lot of questions.
Yes.
And a lot of that is that when the officers are going to a call, the first thing we want to know is what's going on, where's it
Yes.
at, what are they seeing,
Who's involved?
who's involved? Because if
Yes.
we see somebody leaving, or it's an in-progress call, or
Yes.
whatever the case is, we want to have that information as we're arriving. So as we're getting there, as the medics are getting there, as the firefighters are getting there, they need to know if the structure's on fire, what
Right.
color the smoke is. I mean, there's a whole bunch of questions that are maybe to the average person somewhat insignificant, which are massively meaningful
Absolutely.
to law enforcement or to firefighters. And really, that's what you're doing, is you're asking that question and relaying it over.
Right. Something as simple as color, make, and model of a car. You know, if we know,
Oh, yeah.
if you don't know the whole thing, but at least you know what, it was a black 4-door, and I remember I had bumper stickers on the back, something of that. It gives us something to go off of. So we'll always ask for that. If you don't know the answer, just let us know you don't know, and that's okay.
You know, the other thing is, I was listening to an audio the other day. I get audio tapes from you guys a lot, just because we get calls, so we'll get the audios and
Right.
we'll listen to them. And you guys are great at giving us that. But all of a sudden, I'll get just the phone system, and I'll get all the questions. There'll be a dead spot. And then I'll get questions, and I'm like, oh, they're actually talking on the radio
Yes.
at that point. And you actually stop this, you're transmitting it on the phone so they don't hear you, because
Yes.
that may confuse the caller.
We can hear them, but they won't be able to hear us if we're going out on our radio channel.
So even if there's nothing happening on there, that doesn't mean you aren't doing something.
Correct.
You are. You're actually
We
doing
are.
something, but you're just trying not to confuse them.
Yes, we're doing a few things at a time, and trying to get the best response for our citizens, and trying to take care of all of our responders on the other end of the radio. So sometimes when you hear that little bit of silence, or it sounds, like when somebody puts you on mute, it has kind of that sound to it.
Yeah.
It's typically that we're going out on the radio with the information that you're giving us.
And then the other, I have too many DUCOM questions. I love DUCOM. I think DUCOM's an awesome organization, as well as Addison. ACDC has the same, they use the same rules, so it's the same kind of thing. When you have a hot call, I mean, do you get all the other dispatchers coming over to help that dispatcher? I mean, because there's stuff goes on. We had an incident a while ago that was really chewed up a lot of your resources. Are they sitting at their computers and they can tie into it, or do they come over and start helping?
We can actually just pull up that radio channel anywhere that we're at. So
Technology. Yeah.
I can listen to what I'm working, and then pull up something else if something's happening with that. And then if I hear a request, I can tell a teammate, hey, I got that for you. We also have a CAD system. We can all see everything. So if there's something with that and somebody notates it, and so we do work together. There's quite a bit of teamwork both on the police and the fire side with dispatch as well.
Is there anything else that you need to cover there? My stuff is done. It's yours? Have we covered everything that we wanted to cover?
Yeah, I think we
Christina?
have. The
CRC,
only- I don't-
CRC and me?
Yeah, the only thing that I had is, so what do you still tell the people that say, well, I still don't want to call 911 for something silly? I mean, you just...
We prefer that they do call us, but if they don't, you'll just get transferred.
It's going to take longer to get there. They've got to find the 10-digit number. They have to hit it. They have to transfer it over. And when it still gets there, it still comes in on 911.
So it's just easy.
It just really,
Yeah.
no matter which way they do it, and they use the 10-digit line after hours or even during hours to get to an officer, they're still going there on 911.
Yes.
So I guess you could say I don't want to do it, but reality is
You're going
you're still
there.
doing it.
Yes.
Yeah, you're still doing
And
it.
we did used to have some confusion with that too, because all of our lines, for the most part, will be answered with 911. What's the address of the emergency?
Right.
Even if you called from a non-emergency number.
Right.
Because it could be an emergency, we're still going to ask it that way. We still want to know where you are, regardless of the situation. But by talking to you, we know if it's an emergency or not an emergency, and how we should handle it and prioritize and all of that. So.
Awesome. I think that's great. Well, I think we answered the
I
questions.
think so.
Right?
Yeah.
You're going to flip it
I'm
around
gonna
and
flip
take
you
it
guys.
from there.
Flip one more
Bye,
time.
everybody.
Hopefully I don't shut my screen again. I have to figure out the nuances of this. But anyways, just thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Chief. Like I said, if you guys, we want to start to do this monthly. If you guys have any topics you want to talk about, anything you want community, law enforcement related, anything like that, I'm going to do a follow-up post with all of my information. You can do it to Facebook Messenger, email it to me directly. But we really appreciated you guys joining us. Hopefully you learned something new, and we look forward to doing this again very soon. All right, thank you.
Bye.